My name is Medman Kojic, and this is my capstone. Who am I here with today?
You're here with Abra Kurtovic.
And what school do you go to?
I go to University of Connecticut. Go Huskies.
And what's your major?
My major is communications.
And what year of college are you in?
I'm currently a senior.
For the first question of this interview, how do you think standardized tests affect students' mental health and stress levels?
I think it affects it negatively. I think the standardized testing affects students' mental health poorly because during the standardized testing time, they're in the middle of the school year, so they're trying to focus on passing their classes. And now you introduce standardized testing, which doesn't affect their grade at all, but the teachers make it out to be such a really big test that is so decisive on your future. So you have to study for standardized testing while trying to make sure you get good grades. So during that, it's just your stress levels are high. With that comes other mental health issues. So therefore, I think it's just really hard on the students. And yeah, that's about it.
Alright, for the second question of the thing, do you believe standardized tests measure a student's true ability? Why or why not?
No, I don't think standardized testing measure a student's true ability because the standardized testing is so vague and there's just so much to it that you can't really get a student's true ability by just a simple test. I think students excel in certain areas and then other areas they don't. So therefore, I think the standardized testing is a poor way to measure a student's true academic ability.
And on a personal level, how did it affect you?
So for me personally, when I was doing the standardized testing, I was going into not really high hopes because when I was graduating, I was a senior and they were talking about how the studentized testing isn't going to be measured when it comes to your college applications. So therefore, I honestly wasn't really too stressed about it. When I did it, I feel like the questions were really simple, so I didn't really struggle on it. But I'm different from other students because everyone's different. So for me, it wasn't bad, but I'm sure other people, they had different experiences.
Okay. For the third question, how does teaching preparation for a test impact student creativity and critical thinking?
The teaching preparation is really big when it comes to students' critical thinking because the way the teacher explains certain things is how the student will remember it. So whether it's explaining it through a picture, through vocally, or any other ways a teacher chooses to go about their class, that's the way the student's gonna remember it. So when they see it on the test, they're gonna think back to the way their teacher explained it, and that's how they're gonna answer the question. So I think it's very important the way a teacher teaches, and they gotta engage with their students so the student can absorb that information and then use it when it comes to the test.
Did you have any problems on a personal level about how teachers taught you or?
Yeah, me personally, I'm a hands-on learner. So when a teacher just reads off a textbook or just uses vocal words and doesn't really physically explain it to me or give me examples for myself to do, I find it kind of hard to take that learning into my own work because I didn't really do it hands-on. I just saw someone else doing it, so therefore I didn't really get that experience myself. And I struggled with that throughout high school, but a lot of teachers, they do give classwork, homework, and then I use that to help myself during tests.
Okay, that's good. Alright, for our fourth question, in what ways do you think standardized testing is unfair to certain groups of students? For example, a student coming from another country who don't know much English, or minorities.
When it comes to those type of students, I think that depends on them. Obviously, if they just came to America and they're not really good with the language, things such as the English test, they're going to do very poorly in because obviously it's about English. And if their English is not good, they're going to have to read those questions in English, and they have to answer them in English. And then their questions aren't going to be as good as, say, a kid that was born here, where his English is perfect. So it affects them negatively, and that's going to reflect later on in life as they learn more English, but their SAT score is going to be bad. And people are going to see that they're going to correlate them together, and then it's going to poorly affect them later down in life, when in reality, they just didn't have enough time to learn what they needed to learn for the SAT.
Okay. For the fifth and final question, how has standardized testing changed the way teachers teach or the way students learn?
So I think the standardized testing has changed the way teachers teach because teachers are teaching the students how to pass the test, how to pass the test and not how to absorb that information. So they're only teaching so they can pass the test, get grades on the test, and that's it. After that, they forget about it. And it affects the way students learn because students are learning from the teachers on how to pass the test instead of absorbing that information and really learning that information. Instead, they just learn it so they could pass the test and then forget about it afterwards.
And how does this affect you on a personal level when you took
because when it comes to certain classes, the teacher's only teaching me how to pass the test instead of actually learning the material and like using it outside of the test. So after I learned that, I passed the test, got the grade I wanted, and after that I forgot about it. I didn't care about it anymore.
All right, thank you for this interview.
Yep.
Pleasure. Hey, so I'm here with,
Muyo Kurtovic,
and what school did you attend?
University of Connecticut.
All right, so in this interview, we're gonna start with my first question. How do you think standardized tests affect students' mental health and stress levels?
I think any test, including standardized testing, will cause an increase in a student's stress levels. However, the important aspect is teaching our students and our youth to manage their stress in a healthy way. Whether that be going to the gym, playing sports, hanging out with friends, taking a break in between studying, as long as they focus on things in their life outside of just the test, they can achieve success both in their educational careers, both in their life careers, and at the same time they can manage their mental health in a healthy way.
And how did that affect you personally?
Well, I did engineering, worked full-time job at the same time, so that was pretty stressful, as you can imagine. So in my free time, I spend 2 hours a day focusing on my physical health, going to the gym, and while I'm there, I try not to think about anything else. So it's kind of like an escape. Every day I get an hour, 2 hours to escape from the real world.
Okay.
And I think that's important to balance all the hard things they're going through in life and in your day to day. Otherwise, you're gonna burn out.
All right, on to the second question. Do you believe standardized tests measure a student's true ability? Why or why not?
Not entirely, but I would say it's unfair to say that standardized testing don't measure anything at all. I think standardized testing, for example, they can show how well somebody is solving problems under time constraints, under pressure. But at the same time, I wouldn't say that standardized testings fully represents a student's intelligence, creativity, or their long-term understanding of a subject. However, being able to solve problems under time constraints and under pressure is an important skill to have both professionally, in life in general, and I think it's important that we recognize students who are capable of that.
For the third question, how does teaching preparation for a test impact student creativity and critical thinking?
I would say our current teaching practices have the potential to negatively impact a student's creativity and their critical thinking because we're so focused on preparing them to pass the exam and not soak in the knowledge that the teacher is providing. So for example, a lot of times people ask you, what did you learn last year? Like right now, a few years out of school, people ask you, what did you learn freshman year? What did you learn in this class? What did you learn in that class? And it takes a minute to think about, I'm not sure, maybe this, maybe that. And the reason why is because you're so focused on just the exam that's coming up, passing that exam instead of taking in the knowledge. So the problem with that is this knowledge is going to tie in with other classes that you're taking, and you're going to use all of that together in order to solve complex problems. So when you're focused on just that one class, that one exam that's coming up, and you're not taking in the knowledge on a full level so you can incorporate it into your other classes and tie it all together, you're not going to be very well prepared for the real world.
Moving on to the fourth question, in what ways do you think standardized testing is unfair to certain groups of students? For example, like minorities or students from another country who haven't learned any ounce of English?
Well, the issue is with standardized testing, you have a time constraint. You don't have all day to solve a problem. And that is one of the things that standardized testings are testing for. But at the same time, not everybody has the ability to think under pressure and to answer all the questions effectively in the time allotted. For example, if they don't know English as well as their counterparts, it might take them some time to process just what the question is asking, which is a disadvantage that they may have, even though they may understand the subject just as well as their classmates. However, there are also students whose problem is not understanding the question, but it's coming up with the solution. And now the issue here is they may have the ability to answer the question if given enough time, but standardized testing, since you're under a time constraint, you don't have time to dig in the back of your brain and dig deep into those files and come up with the answer. You have to answer in, let's say for example you have a minute per question, 2 minutes per question. So you have to think fast, you got to think on the spot. Like I was saying before in the second question that you asked me, this is important to recognize. Some students have the ability to think under pressure, come up with a solution that is accurate, that is the correct answer, while other students may not. This is important because, for example, I mean, think about it. You have an emergency medical situation occurring. You want, your EMT, you want your paramedic to be able to think on his feet quick and come up with the right solution.
Obviously, I know what you mean.
So sometimes it's important. We have to recognize people who are able to do that.
All right, for the last question, how has standardized testing changed the way teachers teach or the way students learn?
So like I was saying before, teachers are preparing their students for the exam, and at the same time, students are mentally and physically preparing as well for the exam instead of soaking in the knowledge. So what happens is after the exam passes, after you're done with the class, your brain is deprioritizing that information that you just learned. And as time goes on, eventually you're going to lose that information. So the problem with that is as you're deprioritizing that information and you're no longer exam driven after passing the class, you lose that sense of long-term understanding that you would have developed if instead of focusing on passing the exam, you focus on learning the subject, the criteria. So I mean, there's pros and cons here. There's problems that we need to address, but at the same time, how can you test somebody's knowledge? How can you test that somebody was able to apply themselves to the class without giving them standardized testings? That's something we need to figure out. This may not be the best solution. This may not be the best method. That's your job.
All right, thank you for this interview.
Thank you.
Who am I here with today?
Honest Nakuk,
And what school do you go to?
Central Connecticut State University, just graduated.
You just graduated this year? Okay, I have a few questions for you about standardized tests and what your thoughts are. How do you think standardized tests affect students' mental health and stress levels?
Honestly, for me, it was pretty stressful. It came across like a bad time. I had a bunch of sports, other classes as well. And I was trying to go to get admissions to admitted to Central Connecticut, and it was all in my head. So I think honestly, the timing of it and like how much effort you had to put in kind of messed me up truly. So that's why I didn't really like as a student personally, a student athlete as well. So.
Okay. On to the next question. Do you believe standardized tests measure a student's true ability or true intelligence? Why or why not?
Honestly, I don't think it really shows that much. Of course, you're gonna have students that excel in it and think, they did great in it, whatever, it's perfect. But I, as a student, don't believe in it because. You got your testing, your homeworks, you got your quizzes, you got your average, street, whatever knowledge, whatever. I think all of that in a mix honestly makes up your true knowledge, your true intelligence and stuff. So that one test doesn't make or break, how smart you are, what school you can go to. So honestly, I think it's not the best, not the best choice. There could be other choices that I hope in the future we can come across. But personally, like I said, for me, not the best. Doesn't really showcase my intelligence. As you see, like I probably ended with, I don't know what the score right now is, but like a 1200 or so when I was aiming for higher. And I know I didn't get that, but I was really focused on the study materials and stuff. But so that's what I'm saying. Like I didn't achieve my scores, but it's not up to me. It's due to how much work I had to put in, how much time across. Like I said from the first question you asked me, the timing of it, sports, everything. So the test overall not that great.
On to the next question. How do teachers' preparations for a test impact student creativity and critical thinking?
Honestly, I think the most time that teachers do give students ahead of time for the test, it matters a lot. But honestly, I think students have to do work outside of school. That for me, I don't think it's enough what teachers do, especially nowadays. I don't know how it is, but like I said, I graduated. But I think it's not that great. The timing isn't well. Like I said, I think teachers could also push students a little more and give less work for other classes because I know they have other classes and stuff too, not just that testing. But honestly, like I said, it's not the best, not really good, not good timing, and yeah.
Okay. All right, on to the next question. In what ways do you think standardized testing is unfair to certain groups of students? Like, for example, students who are minority or
Yeah.
came from a different
Well, for
country.
example, I'm Bosnian, and you are
Yeah.
also, like I said, immigrants. You know, coming to the country, not knowing much, and didn't have that chance, so I
Yeah.
wasn't really able to learn
Mhm.
how to study, how to prepare, especially for a test like that big. And like I said, yeah, like my parents being immigrants and like coming into the country trying to teach me how to study and stuff, it was really hard for me. So I think like minorities were all anyone, and actually not even just minorities, any group of students could actually be affected. Having the time and effort like in low income housing, like like they have other problems, mental issues, like I said, mental stress
Mhm.
issues, psychological factors. They could all play a part into it, how difficult it is to prepare, how difficult it is to get good grades, how difficult it is for the standardized testing. So I honestly think it was rough for me, but anyone can pull through. But like I said, it was just I don't think it's great.
For the last and final question we have, how has standardized testing changed the way teachers teach or the way students learn?
I think students learn much more. It's harder for them to learn and take on information. I was talking to
Yeah.
one of friends of mine. His brother's in like high school and stuff, getting ready for this actual test, and he was saying like the teachers just teach based on to get ready for the test. Like testing,
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
like no knowledge. It's not like good information, no preparation, no time. Like I said, the time limit they have, the time span. It's like they're just strictly test. There's no like. It's not broad, it's just specifics. And, I don't think it's great, and I don't think it's like good for us, and I don't think it's good for the upcoming students. We need better, and hope there's better. So yeah.
All right, so thank you for the interview.
Yeah, no problem.
Have a good day.